Welcome to another installment of 15 Minutes with Andy as we continue to focus on all of as much positivity as we can grab in our world. That's the focal point of this, and we've had some terrific guests, and we're making early 15 Minutes with Andy podcast history. Our first multiple guests, and not just one, not just two, but three great guests that we're here to talk a lot about today. Tammy Sprow, Allie Sprow, and Kendall Sprow. Ladies, thanks for being with me.
Sure. Thanks.
So we've got a lot to talk about, and namely we want to talk a lot about husband and dad, Corey. We just talked before we began. I think this is appropriate that we're doing this now, right? That we're doing this 10 years since he passed away. And close to his birthday as we record this as well. But we don't want this to be all about Corey and his passing. We want to also give listeners a glimpse into who Corey was and how you guys have been both with Corey and since Corey. So Tammy, since you were girlfriend and then wife first before these two great things came along, tell us about where that journey began. Where did that story begin?
Yeah, so Corey and I both grew up in Northwest Ohio. Corey was an Eden bomber. I was at Stryker. And if you're listening from Northwest Ohio, you kind of know how that goes. You know who the basketball players are at the other school, but I didn't know Corey in high school. When we both went away to college, we still had sisters in high school, and so I think it was basketball season of like 94, 95. I was home on Christmas break. Corey was home. Our sisters had a basketball game against each other. They were seniors, and we were in Stryker. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I like to say our eyes met across the gym. We didn't speak. We didn't talk. And I went home, and I got a phone call staying at my parents' house, and it was Corey Sprow. And so he found my number in the phone book and just called me up and said, "Hey, can I take you out on a date?" And that was the start of it.
And girls, by the way, that was work, because a phone book, you had to go and actually do all of that. You had to. That was effort back then, and landlines and all that.
Oh yeah,
great stuff.
I mean, it wasn't. He couldn't look me up on social media and snap me. It wasn't that. I think he actually called my uncle's house first, Amy Jo's dad's house first, and they said, "No, you need this number." And he called, and we went to Fort Wayne, and I went back to college, and I remember telling a friend, "Yeah, I met this guy over break, but I'm in Columbus, he's here, no big deal." And it turned out to be a big deal.
When did you realize that it was like the more time you spent, like how quickly did you realize that this might be a big deal?
Well, so at that point, Corey went to Bluffton for 1 year out of school. I was at Otterbein in Westerville, and he ended up moving home for a year, but after 1 year at Bluffton before he went to BG. So he was actually living at home at that point. So we were like 4 hours apart. And we dated for a while, but then we were 4 hours apart. We ended up taking a year break. But then by the time I was a senior in college, he was at BG. That's when it just kind of, we just kept coming back to each other. It's like we both dated other people, but we just kept coming back to each other. And now my girls are whispering, and I don't know what they're whispering about. But yeah, it took a little bit of time for us to figure it out. But by the time I graduated college a year ahead of him. We knew, and I knew I was moving back to Northwest Ohio to be near him at that point.
What drew you in? I'm sure a lot of factors.
His abs.
So there's the physical part.
I'm not going to lie. His abs.
Okay.
He's just so fun. He was, I remember I looked at my sister on that Christmas break when she was still in high school, and it was like, Corey Sprow. I've heard of him. I don't know. And she said, well, what else do you have to do? And I said, well, nothing. It's a Christmas break. But we just had fun together. We loved a lot of the same things in terms of sports, and we played volleyball. We played sand volleyball together for years over in Eden in a league. And I just think we had a lot in common, and we had just very easy to talk to, and we had a lot of fun when we were together.
Yeah. And, for those that we talked about making effort back then, we did a lot of different things back in those. For full disclosure, Tammy and I, and Corey for that matter, are all close in vicinity to the same age, but you had to be more creative about your dates back then. And I think that was probably a good thing that we went through. And with not as much distraction time, there was more of an opportunity to get to know each other then. You didn't have as many things. I mean, I felt like a lot more personal. I don't know, would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, if you went out to dinner, you didn't have a phone sitting beside you to distract you. Or if you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to make the effort. I mean, we're talking about I'm living in a dorm with a phone that's hanging on the wall that I'm sharing with a roommate, and you had to make a lot more effort.
So all of that happens, and you then take that plunge eventually. So we're going to jump ahead, I guess, a little bit in the story. So you get married 2000? Is that when?
We got married in 2000. He was living in Delta, and I moved to Delta with him. He got his first job out of college as a teacher, 4th grade teacher at Delta.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brought you to Delta. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's that conversation about kids, and you were both simpatico about having kids, I believe, right? Right from the get-go?
Yeah. So we had our first kid you were 2003. The thing I remember about Corey is he knew he wanted to have kids, but he was bound and determined. He knew he wanted to have kids. So in the fall, they could be the oldest in their grade, so they would be good at sports. So, and I don't know how he managed it, because, you usually don't get to plan that stuff, but he got an August and a September birthday, and he got what he wanted.
Yeah, that's some planning. That is some planning to make sure that all happens. So how would you describe life as you go from dating to then a marital situation?
Corey started coaching right away.
And knew he wanted to.
He knew he wanted to. When he got to Delta, I remember the story. The first person he met was Jay Lefevre. Jay was the baseball coach at that point, and Corey had always thought he wanted to be a head baseball coach. That was his, what he thought he wanted to do. And he met Jay, and Jay had been there forever, and Jay kind of took him under his wing. But a lot of our dating life, once we moved to Delta, revolved around ball games. Date nights were scouting ball games. Date nights were sitting at a baseball game, watching him coach, and then maybe finding a way to have dinner afterward. That wasn't a bad thing, but it can be tough. A lot of our life revolved around sports. At that point, he just wanted to coach and get involved. So I think he started off coaching middle school football, definitely middle school basketball, and then assisting Jay. So it was year-round coaching, all in.
And you have to be all in, or that doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, these girls both grew up in a gym. Lug the little baby carrier in, and they could sleep through a buzzer, a whistle. It didn't matter. They're a little scandalized when I tell them that I would change them into their pajamas in the stands before we'd drive home from a away game, because I knew they'd fall asleep, and I wanted to be able to just put them right in bed when we got home. So they're not very happy with me when they heard about that. I'll
let you talk a little bit about, because now you're at that age as you grow older, and Mom's already explained about you being gym rats as kids. But what are your early and through the years memories of Dad? This is Allie, by the way, we should say.
Yes, hi. I remember a lot of basketball practices and hanging out with the ball boys and getting to be friends with some of the basketball boys. I remember I was really shocked when I found out that boys had long armpit hair. Because I remember
it's
seeing
scary.
Yeah, and I was like, why don't you shave your armpit hair? No, I remember basketball practices and hanging out in Dad's classroom before school and after school with back when he was a 6th grade science teacher. So once I was able to go to school, I went to his classroom after and getting to know some of the other teachers and hanging out with the kids there. And I remember he had a rock collection in his classroom, and now that I look back, I think that was kind of nerdy, not gonna lie.
What was the significance? He was just love rocks.
He was teaching about rocks.
Okay.
But this rock collection was large and very organized.
Would you describe him as the ultimate girl dad? Was he a good girl dad?
I mean, I think so. I don't remember anything bad about him being a girl dad. I mean, he was able to do things to our hair.
Yeah.
I don't think he was able to braid, but
And that's tough. I didn't know how to braid all that well either as a girl dad, but you figure out the ponytails at the very least.
Yeah.
Because if you came rolling in and Mom was waiting on you guys and your hair was everywhere, instantly that you end up in the doghouse for something like that. You better figure out at least the ponytail.
Yeah. I think, he was a good girl dad.
Yeah, and Kendall, you were real little then, right?
Yeah.
So your memories you might have a few here and there,
Yeah.
but a lot come from sis and Mom. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, mostly I just, they tell me stories and then it, sparks my memory, I guess. But mostly, I remember this is when he was a principal. Allie and I would be running around the school like nobody else was there, just us. And then he'd come over the intercom and he'd be like, "What are you two doing?" And we'd get yelled at and yeah.
That sounds like him.
Yeah.
The Corey that I knew, that he would do something like that.
Yeah.
So everything's going great. I'll let you pass the microphone back to Tammy. He's coaching, by the way, through all of this. Delta's program's being built. He was named, NWAL Coach of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Had good teams, good players. And Delta's a school that we talked before we started going. This is known as a wrestling school in the winter. But now Delta had opened some eyes because a large amount of what Corey had done as head coach there as becoming a basketball school. Is that something... Obvious question here, but he obviously had taken a great amount of pride in, I assume.
He did. Corey was, I don't know how to explain this. Corey was like the ultimate Delta. He didn't really care if the kids succeeded at wrestling or at basketball or at whatever they succeeded at, but he really just wanted the kids to succeed. And I think the kids responded to that. He just had a way that the kids wanted to play for him. They wanted to be around him. He got them to work hard. And yeah, I think, success builds success. So he started probably 1-2 games out of 20 his first season. And then it just kept building and building, and kids kept wanting to play. And he did get some of the athletes that wrestling might have normally gotten. And but it was a lot of work. It's a lot of Saturday mornings with the little kids program and a lot of coming home. I can remember that we would come home at night, and we often had people over after, but they'd leave at 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and Corey... Or later. And it never failed. Corey always watched film that night. No matter what time people left, he watched that game film that very same night. Remember, these were the days of VHS tapes. So you're scouting with VHS tapes. So he would watch his film, he would dub it down, and then the next day we would go meet some other coach to exchange films. You guys have no clue. They're used to huddle, and Kendall can go watch her game as soon as it's over, practically, right? But we would have to take a VHS tape, go hand it to another coach, arrange a meeting place, and then we'd get a tape from them so that they could watch their next opponent. But yeah, it's a ton of work to build a program like that. And most people, I don't think, understand what goes into that.
Whether they were players for Corey or kids that he would see when he was teaching, or then kids when he became principal, how did the kids respond to him? And whether it be coaching, admin, or teaching, how would you describe the response from kids back to him?
I mean, I have so many kids still now to this day come up and say, he was my favorite teacher. He was my favorite coach. But lots of he was my favorite teacher. He was really involved in the 6th grade camp that Delta always takes the 6th grade class to Camp Palmer. It was with Corey. It's a different camp now, I think. But he was just passionate about getting those kids opportunities outside of the classroom, and it didn't have to be basketball. It could be whatever. I remember one year he had a student come to him and say, Coach or Mr. Sprow, I can't go to camp because this list says I need 5 pairs of socks and I need 5 T-shirts, and I don't have that many pairs of socks. So I can't go. And Corey was the kind of teacher that he that night went to the store, bought this kid what he needed to go to camp, and handed it to the next day and said, you're going to camp. This isn't going to stop you from going to camp. And the kids knew that about him.
Mm-hmm. And in everything that we ever heard too, similar type stories through the years. And I know the coaches in the area, when he was a basketball coach, respected the heck out of him. What was that decision like then as he makes the transition from coaching to admin?
He always said that once the girls got old enough that he was starting to miss their activities, that was when he would be done coaching. And that's the point we were getting to, was the girls were kindergarten and third grade, and he just felt like Allie was coming to a point where he was going to start to miss some things, and this elementary principal option came up, and so that's when he decided to do that. But it was always, when I start missing things of my own girls, I'm done coaching.
Yeah, family first.
Yeah.
And I know the basketball family was family, but literally in this instance, immediate family first.
Yeah. I mean, in it's no secret to any other coach's wife. Basketball came first for not first, but he put in a lot of time. There was a lot of times that we were at home, the 3 of us, while he was doing something for basketball. So yeah, he was ready to turn it around and put us first.
So, and we mentioned that the timely part of this conversation. Unfortunately, one of the timely issues that we're talking about, it's been 10 years since he passed in the car accident. You got Christmas together that year because the accident happened, the day after? The
day after Christmas.
So I guess take us back to those weeks, or that week and 10 days or whatever in 10 years ago.
Yeah, so we had our normal Christmas. It was December 26th. I went to work, and the girls were at home with Corey, and they had a dentist appointment, and Corey was going to take them to, and it was a snowy day. And I remember we were watching the weather at work and thinking, okay, are we going to send people home? It was really bad. And I think around 3 o'clock, I decided to head home. And I knew they had dentist appointments, and I hadn't heard from them. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna head home, and they should be home. Tried to call Corey on my way, didn't get an answer. I'm driving home I was up working in Holland, and I'm driving home to Delta, and I remember very distinctly an ambulance came past me on Airport Highway, and I didn't think much of it, and I'm getting between Swanton and Delta, and the road is closed, and you can see that there's an accident up there. And I was talking to my best friend on the phone, and I said, hey, Christy, I'm just going to hang up real quick because I'm sure it's nothing, but I haven't heard from Corey, and I just want to call him because this would be the road that he would have been driving. And so I hung up with her, and I tried him again, and I didn't get him. And right about probably I got home, and I think it was right about as I was getting home that my phone rang, and it was the hospital. And they said, there's been an accident. We have your daughters en route to Toledo Children's Hospital. At that point, they told me the girls were awake and talking. Not really true once I got to the ER, but that's another story. Their definition of awake and talking was very different than mine. And I said, do you know anything about my husband? And they said, we don't. I'm sure you'll get a call, but he's in a different ambulance going to a different hospital. So Kendall's dying to say something. Do you want to say something?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Kendall.
I was just going to say that it was me who gave them the phone number to call Mom, because I remember being in the ambulance and I was just looking up at the ceiling or something, and I was just looking at this stuffed animal, and then I remember them asking me, they're like, what's your mom's phone number? And I was in kindergarten, and I remember in kindergarten we had to learn that stuff, like, in case of an emergency, so it was very thankful for my teacher for teaching me that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
you
yeah.
did a great job.
Yeah, so then I gave them the phone number, and then they called Mom.
And you were 6.
Yeah, I was 6.
And Allie, you'd have been 9?
Yeah.
Okay. So being in an accident, was it bad? I mean, did it feel bad at the time to you guys? Like, what was that from your perspective at such a young age?
I don't remember being hurt at all or anything. I mean, obviously I was, but I don't remember feeling anything. The only thing I remember from actually in the car was, like, I just remember seeing the dashboard and seeing seeing Dad up there, because me and Allie were in the back. I don't know if you're in the front.
No, they were both in the back.
Yeah, we were both in the back, and I just remember seeing Dad. I didn't see, like, I think I just saw the back of his head or something, but that's about it. I remember that and the ambulance, and that's all I remember.
Allie, you were a little older. What were your recollections?
I was a little older, but I actually suffered a traumatic brain injury, so I don't remember anything from it.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't provide any more information.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, Tammy, you're now stuck with, where do I go? I mean, if they're going from different to these two were going to the same place, though, right?
Correct. They both
But
went to
Corey's
Toledo
still-
Children's, and I don't know where Corey's going. I haven't heard anything about Corey at that point. So
you go there.
I grabbed their blankies. I grabbed a couple things and a phone charger, and I thought to myself, well, I'm just gonna head toward Toledo, and I'm assuming I'll get a call about Corey on the way. So and then I started calling family, while I was driving, but it was still pretty bad out. And I did end up getting a call about Corey. They said we're taking him to UTMC. And I kind of got an idea from them of, I think I probably asked them, all right, well, I have a choice here. Like, I can go to my kid's hospital or I can go to your hospital. And they said, you should probably come here. So I sent my parents and my sister to Toledo Children's to be with these two, and I went straight to Corey's hospital.
Okay. So what are you told when you get there?
I remember I got met by the chaplain, and I said to her, so it's probably not a great sign that you're the first person I'm seeing. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but she told me, no, this is just what we do. We meet everyone. I could probably ask Allie now that she works in an ER if that's true. No. She's shaking her head. That's not true. He was still in the ER when I got there. I remember that I had to fill out so much insurance paperwork, and I just was so annoyed and thought how stupid this is. Like, can I just please see my husband? But I think in hindsight, they were moving him up to his floor. ICU. Yeah, up to ICU. And so I saw him for the first time up in ICU.
And obviously you knew the situation was bad from the beginning.
Yeah, it's funny because
Or no?
outwardly, Corey had barely a scratch on him. I think he had maybe a scratch on his face, but there was no, physically, you didn't see anything. It was a brain injury. He was hooked up to a whole bunch of stuff, but he wasn't cut, scraped, bleeding, none of that. Yeah.
So from that time, this goes for a week in between the accident and Corey passing. The girls, when do they get out?
So actually, Corey went from the 26th to the 3rd. The girls were in ICU at Toledo Children's for a couple days. It's super blurry, you know. Like sometimes I look at my sister or my mom and they have to help me with the memories, but I went back and forth. Like my dad mostly, and I think Corey's dad too, probably drove me back and forth between the two hospitals for a week. Somewhere around New Year's, do you guys remember? You spent New Year's Eve at home?
Yeah, we were home for New Year's, and I think we got home the same night, but I remember you saying they kept her longer because I was in there and they didn't want to let us out at different times.
Right. Yeah.
So that made some kind of sense then to keep you two together.
Thank goodness they did, because if they hadn't, then I would have been, my family is now in 3 different places, one at home, one in the hospital. Kendall had a broken wrist and a broken pelvis, or like a crack in her pelvis. And Allie had the brain injury and an ankle. So Kendall could have gone home probably a day or 2 sooner, but they let us all stay there together until we had this one situated.
So when the 3rd comes around, January the 3rd, is this a decision that you have to make? Yeah.
Actually, no. So I always say, Corey was so steady that entire week that the girls were in the hospital. I never once, in the going back and forth, I never once got called back to his hospital for like an emergency. He never regained consciousness. So it was very, very serious, but it wasn't, it spikes up, oh my gosh, call the family in. It was none of that. We were just waiting and hoping and praying that the pressure in his brain would come down and he would wake up. The girls got home. I finally went home. And that very night was the very first time that I got called back kind of on an emergency call. Hey, you need to get up here. We think something's going on. So there was a point in time where the pressure was rising, his intracranial pressure was rising, and they were deciding whether they wanted to do a
craniotomy.
I keep asking Allie, a craniotomy, where they remove a portion of his skull and hope to relieve some of that pressure. And they decided to do that, and I don't know which day that was, but they decided to do that. That didn't work. There was a time when his pupils changed, I guess is the best way I can describe it, and I think that's how they described it there. And that can often be a sign of brain death. So we waited 24 hours, and then at that point, once that pupil change happened, this is how I remember it, this is probably not medically correct, but once that pupil change happened, then wait 24 hours, and then he's declared brain dead. Yeah.
So I can't imagine you're now going through so many emotions because you've lost your husband, the father of your daughters, and now you've got to have that conversation with them, and they're 9 and 6 at the time, and have to make that decision. Or had Corey already made that decision?
Corey made that
on an organ donation.
He did.
Because this is the next phase that we want to eventually get to here too. But I wanted to ask you about that. I can't imagine what that was like for you. I mean, I know you had a great support staff. I get that.
I did. And I try to find like the little good things all along the way. And I'm so thankful. And I believe that Corey, in a couple different places along this process, was working his magic or making this happen the way he wanted to, because he took the decision out of my hands as far as having to remove him from life support or do something like that. Like, I probably couldn't have.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done had that had to have been my decision. So it's almost like he took that decision out of my hands. Like he held so steady while the girls needed me and were in the hospital, and then they got home, and that's when I think he finally, I just know that he knew. And so he took that decision out of my hands too. I didn't have to make it. We didn't have to decide because he decided it for us.
So he's an organ donor.
He is. He had it on his driver's license.
And this now takes us into one of the amazing things that have come out of such a horrific, terrible event is the lives that he has helped along the way. I guess, where did you get involved? Tell us some of the backstories, I guess, of organ donation.
So it was on his driver's license. And, again, my memories are so foggy. But at some point, someone approached us. We noticed this was on his driver's license. Can we talk to you about organ donation? He'd be a good candidate. And that was an easy answer, because even if he wouldn't have marked it on his driver's license, it would have been an easy answer. Like, just knowing Corey, and you knew Corey, there's no way he would have not wanted to help somebody if he could. So it was easy. Signed the paperwork. One of the really cool things I talk about that happened in the hospital is, and this is the one I always cry at, we had signed the paperwork. We knew that he was going to head off to surgery for
Harvesting.
the harvesting.
Yep.
I don't think we're supposed to use that word.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, for the donation. And my sister, I always have to give her a shout out for this. She helped facilitate that I could climb into bed with Corey and kind of have a minute to say goodbye to him. And so the nurses helped. They got him moved over in the bed. And Corey, his shoulders were like, he was about as broad as the bed, but they got him moved over and they got some of the wires and stuff out of the way. And I was able to just kind of get those arms around me one more time and spend a little bit of time with him before I had to go. And that's something that I can still feel it. I can still see it. I'm so very thankful for that. Because it had been a long 10 days of just machines and beeping and all of that stuff. And so to get to just touch him and climb into bed with him and say goodbye to him quietly was amazing.
Yeah. Grateful in the moment for sure. And probably that's even grown as the years have gone by.
Absolutely. I do a fair amount of events for organ donation for Life Connection now, and when I speak about it, that's always one thing that I talk about. For anybody that is, I speak a little bit to some of the students that are going into organ donation sciences, and I always talk about that moment that they gave me to say goodbye is huge.
Do you know any of the backstory of where any of Corey's organs went? Sometimes people do, but
yeah, because my girls were so young, I've resisted knowing a lot. We know a lot of people in the organ donation community. It's a bigger community than you think in Northwest Ohio, but also small enough that we know a lot of people. We see people at the same events, and I know people who are very close with the recipients of their loved ones' organs. And I just have not wanted to make that decision for my girls. I want them to be able to make that decision as they're getting older. And so it's just something. We did get a card from Corey was able to donate both kidneys and his liver, and then tissue, bone, all that stuff. I think so. I meant to bring that list and I didn't. So I have cards from at least 2 of the organ recipients, but they're anonymous. I want these 2 to decide when they're ready if they want to know the recipients of their dad's organs. Because when you're 6 and 9 or 10 and 13, I just imagine that would be a little bit confusing to know that this person's walking around with one of your dad's organs. Do you guys think about that?
Not yet, no. Probably too much to wrap around still. Yeah. So it's been 10 years. I'll let Allie and Kendall, I guess, maybe talk a little bit. What was it like for you guys, and what has it been like here over the last 10 years?
Oh, me?
Allie? Especially since being young.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot of, like, at first, of talking about him donating his organs. I don't think I understood that that's what had happened. Me too. Kendall says the same, but I know that there were a couple events that Life Connection of Ohio did, and for me that was always hard. It's still hard. I don't love the idea of... I understand completely now, especially working in a healthcare setting, why people need these organs, and I've seen firsthand people who are waiting for organs and how wonderful it is when they get them. But for me, the idea of it being my dad who donated is strange, so I don't participate in the events as much as my sister and my mom do, but I can still appreciate from an objective perspective, like how wonderful it is.
Does it help you, Kendall?
Help me what?
Has it helped, I guess, a little bit with the healing process to know that Dad has helped a little bit and you are involved?
Yeah. Me and Mom did, well, I guess we all did that photo shoot to go on their website. And I don't know, the people there are really nice. Allie babysits the owner, director person's kids, I guess. So we're kind of close with her. And yeah, they're all super nice there, and they're really comforting, I guess. But I don't really remember anything right after, I guess. It's kind of all a blur, I guess. But
so this can do one of 2 things when tragedy happens in a family. It can either tear you apart, maybe forever, or it can bring you even closer, which I think you guys the 4 of you were all close to begin with. But for the 3 of you now, have you been close and gotten closer as the years have gone on? Is that what this happened?
Absolutely. My graduation speech included a reference to the 90s TV show Gilmore Girls, in which the mother and daughter have a freakish link, and I believe that the same is true for my mother and I, and definitely for Kendall and Mom too.
I want to ask you real quick, Allie, for those that don't, and I'll let you... Kendall's in school, still in high school, a sophomore, but you're at UT now, and you're in the healthcare field.
Yes, I am.
Did this play any role, or did you think? I guess I'll let you answer that.
To be completely honest, I think it plays a subconscious role, but I don't think it's the reason that I want to do healthcare. I mean, I could fudge some college admissions essay about it, but I think that my dad going through it doesn't change it, but my personal experiences, although I don't remember a whole lot of them, I work in the ER now, and I can sometimes work on the pediatric unit, and I really, I normally say that I hate peds because I hate watching kids who don't know what's going on and no one is explaining things to them in pain and scared. But I think that ultimately that's why I want to go into healthcare, is because I want to make sure people, whether they're children or adults or cancer patients or laboring mothers, I want to help them understand what's going on and not be kind of in the dark. So I'm not sure how much of what my dad went through goes into that, but I know definitely what I went through is a big part of why I want to go into healthcare.
That's awesome. I mean, another amazing thing that's come out of such a terrible event.
Yes.
Tammy, you had a lot that fell on your shoulders, and first of all, I know you don't want to accept this, but hats off to everything that you did. You had to be mom, dad, and a little bit of everything and sacrifice so much for the girls. Do you feel like, from your perspective, that you two, or the three of you, but the two girls and you got closer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't easy, right? And hopefully someday they appreciate all the work that it took. They don't always now. They're shaking their heads, but they don't. I have to give props to my family. My parents lived 20 minutes from us, and they really became hugely important to the running of our household. My mom was retired, so she was the orthodontist, deliverer. She cooked for us once a week. My dad's the handyman. You know, a lot of the house stuff fell to him. They just complete rocks for us. Still are, but that's probably, you know, as much as it brought us, the three of us, together, I think my girls have a relationship with their grandma and grandpa that they never would have had. So that's kind of a silver lining for sure, is they really have kind of a second mom and you have aunts that are really important in our lives. Like, we just have this, and we have friends that are really important in our lives. There's so many people I could point to in the Delta community, or you know, that dads who stepped up if the dishwasher wasn't working, or if there was a father-daughter dance that I think I went with Kendall one year, but I think you went with another dad another year. I think you went with TW and Sydney one year. Delta just wrapped their arms around us and took care of us, man.
And you
they
don't
really
get that.
did.
I mean, if you're living in a city and this goes on, I mean, you may get some, but not like a small town community.
No, I mean, we're talking, it would snow, and I didn't even have to ask, and my driveway's plowed. Little gifts dropped off at the back door on special occasions or for no occasion. I mean, I can't even think of how many presents, like blankets and teddy bears and things that were dropped off for the girls after the accident, and for months afterward. I mean, we still have people that help us, that just take care of us.
So organ donation was one thing, but so many other things came out of this. Tell me about at least two, and if there's more, I apologize, and you can certainly fill me in. Backpack Buddies at Delta, and a golf outing that happens.
Yeah, so actually, Backpack Buddies, I can't take any credit for. It's namesake only. There was a student, Cal Gilson, who was doing a senior project. I believe she was at one of the Catholic high schools in Toledo, and she wanted to do this backpack program where they send food home on the weekend for families that might be food unstable. And so she just asked if she could use Corey's name. So we've volunteered for it, but we've not volunteered any more than anybody else. So that's really just his name. We received a lot of financial support after the accident. I mean, I think you probably remember there were basketball games, there were fundraisers, there were just all kinds of things that went on all around Northwest Ohio, Toledo area, all around. And a lot of people choose at that point to maybe do a scholarship in the name of their loved one. And I've tried through this whole thing to just kind of take my time and just listen to my heart and let that guide me. And I just wasn't guiding me toward the scholarship thing. I think they're wonderful and they're great, but I wanted to find a way to maybe impact more people than, because you can give a kid a $500 or $1,000 scholarship, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to tuition, as you and I both know, and it's affecting one kid. So I was looking for ways that we could help more, and I came up with Sprow Bucks, which is an informal thing that we do at Delta. And I thought, if I could give and Corey having been a teacher too, if I could give a teacher $500 or $1,000, what could they do with that? How many students could they impact with that? And they could impact a student this year and next year and the following year. So we started these kind of mini grants at Delta, and we've funded everything from a little bit of technology. We've funded speakers, motivational speakers to come in. We've funded banners. We've funded different classroom aids, just all kinds of things. And my parameters are usually, I'd like it to be something that helps multiple kids and something of a not consumable necessarily, something that's going to be around for a couple of years. We donated to the field house at the football field. We're actually kind of talking about maybe doing some improvements at the soccer field, which is near and dear to Kendall's heart. So rather than do a scholarship, this is just kind of what we've decided to do. Allie was involved in a program called Destination Imagination for many years, which is it's also known as Odyssey of the Mind now, but we were able to do some donations towards those teams to take their trip to the global finals in Nashville. We donate to Camp Storer or Camp Palmer, whatever the camp might be, because Corey loved sixth grade camp and what it did. So we fund that by there's still money left from the donations all that way back. There is an annual golf outing that, again, I can't take credit for. The Northwest Ohio basketball coaches put that on. Dave Storer is huge in coordinating that, and he has for 8-9 years now. And they just write us they do all the work for it, and they write us a check at the end of it and say, here, do your Sprow Bucks thing with this.
Well, here's something, too. And I don't know how much of a fundraiser it is, but it's a cool thing. Delta and Eden, the communities that he touched, still play, and there's a scrimmage night. And then tell everybody, I guess, what happens that night when I know COVID stopped it one year, and I don't know if there was another year or maybe it was 2 years. But anyways, it's happened multiple times over the course of the years, Delta and Eden playing.
Yeah, that's, again, I try to think of things that honor Corey and honor the things that he loved. And we know he loved Eden, and we know he loved Delta, and we know he loved basketball. So I've been blessed. I'm on my third AD now, and I don't know how many basketball coaches, but I've been blessed with administration that supported this idea that I had of, hey, let's play a basketball game. Let's let the alumni of Eden play the alumni of Delta. And we do it in conjunction with usually a scrimmage between the two varsity JV teams. And we've always alternated back and forth between the two schools. The Eden community has been hugely supportive of this game for us, too. There's a group of ladies and there that went to high school with Corey and that loved him, and they helped me with that tremendously. And, yeah, we had to take a couple years off for COVID. Last year we actually just did Delta versus Delta because we couldn't quite get the scrimmage timing to work out between the two schools. But we've expanded it. The cheerleaders come now. Once Allie became a cheerleader, we brought the cheerleaders in, and they come to it. And yeah, that's been a really good opportunity to see. I still call them kids, but I guess I probably shouldn't anymore. Some of these young men who played for Corey and who, used to have team meals in our house and who my girls grew up looking up to. And it's a great opportunity for them to meet people that maybe coached their dad or played with their dad. So yeah, that's also a fundraiser that we do. But we don't really do it to be a fundraiser. I do it because I love seeing these people that loved Corey, and they love getting together and being with people that loved Corey. And I like the girls. I just like the girls to be able to meet some people that were important in their dad's life.
Yeah. If I say this phrase, what does it mean to each of you? All out, all the time.
That's kind of our. That's been kind of one of our mantras. That was definitely Corey's mantra. It's literally the way that man lived his life. He didn't know the brake pedal. It didn't matter if it was a flag football game that he was playing in that he hadn't warmed up for, practiced for, and he walked off with a pulled hammy, or it was the way that he taught, the way that he coached. But cannot probably sum it up any better than that's how that guy lived his life.
Well, I really appreciate you taking time to visit with me. And as we said, the other anniversary that's coming up, well, it's a yearly thing for everybody, and that's his birthday. As we record this, it's going to air past his birthday, but as we record this on a Sunday, his birthday is Tuesday the 11th, right?
Yep.
So is that something how do you guys recognize that each year, salute that, remember?
It has definitely evolved as the girls have gotten older. It used to be a real big deal. We would release balloons, the family would get together. Kendall has plans for this year.
Oh, what do you got, Kendall?
Well, me and my grandpa Kevin, who's my dad's dad, we visited his grave yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, and we were just talking about, he has this little flowers right by it, and it's like in a stone case, and so we were talking about maybe buying balloons and tying them around that stone so then they won't fly away, but just put them out for his birthday, and even if they only last like a couple days, still.
That's awesome. Anything you can do to remember, and I know you do. You don't need birthdays to do that. That's something that you can do each and every day, and I'm sure do every day. There isn't a day that goes by. We have what we call a speed round. And I know, Allie, this is get your list out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the first two questions, sounds like, are yours. And by the way, I've enjoyed getting to know you guys a little bit here today, too. And I hope you've enjoyed a couple of stories. You can take Sprousal Arousal out of this room now and at least have that filed away for that reason. So we do questions at the end with our guests. And the first question, and Allie, we already said you've got the first two. What is your favorite word? And maybe sounds like it changes daily for you. But
yes.
But what's your favorite word today?
Well, I actually keep a list of them because every time I find a word that I really like, I write it down. Kendall's laughing at me because it probably is 2 pages long if you put it on a Word document. I'm going to go with bandicoot.
What does that mean?
Don't ask me.
Oh, you just like the word.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can figure it out, but...
So what's a word that you despise, your least favorite word today?
Anything with 2 O's and a G. So, like... Stop laughing at me.
Mongoose.
That's horrible. That is a horrible word. Google, booger. I mean, booger's gross in itself, but, like, goofy... Horrible words.
I love that word.
2 O's and a G.
2 O's and a G. It gets me.
That is interesting.
I never. You made this up.
I'm really not.
What's again to any of you, what's a sound or noise that you love? You have one, Kendall?
Well, I don't know. They're pointing at me.
You definitely have ones you hate.
Okay, then I'll ask you sound or noise that you hate.
I don't. When my mom sighs at me, maybe.
Is that like a disappointing?
Yes. Like I'll say something, she's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, so dramatic. I'm kidding. I love you.
So who has a sound or noise that they love?
I don't know.
I got a good one.
Okay, Kendall.
I love when they laugh. Oh, thanks.
I just bought you some big time
Yeah, I had to make up for
gift points there.
Here, I'll second that, though. I love the sound of the 2 of you laughing together. Like, nothing melts my heart more than when the 2 of them have their heads together and they're just giggling about whatever it might be when they just giggle, the two of them.
Have you been close a lot all these years, or do you feel like now that you've gotten older, you're closer now? I see some glares back and forth.
I think definitely her moving to college helped a lot because I feel like we've been getting sick of each other by seeing each other so much, but now she's in college, and now I hug her every time I see her.
You appreciate all of this now.
Yeah, and everybody told us it would be like that,
true.
too, and they were right. So
okay. So, Tammy, this last two, these are going to be Corey-related questions because of who we've talked a lot about today. So he chose teacher, coach, administrator, whatever it might be. But what profession would he have chosen if he didn't land there? What do you think he would have loved to have attempted? Or maybe not, if it's not in place of what he did, what do you think he still would have wanted to do?
Yeah, well, I personally think he would have been a great superintendent of a school. Like, I could see that progression going from teacher to principal to superintendent. I think he would have been awesome at it. He was so organized. He was so passionate about the district, and people responded well to him. You know, he just had a way of getting people on board with what he was trying to do. I think he would have been amazing as a superintendent.
Okay. How would you like Corey to be remembered? As people, what's the takeaway if they listen to this podcast?
Yeah, there's so many things. I think I really, really admired that we just talked about it all out all the time, that fearlessness that was in Corey. And that's not me. I'm more cautious. I think about how he coached. And when you're a coach, you do your job in front of hundreds of people every night. And it just didn't faze him. He loved what he did, and he didn't let people get down on him, and he didn't let people intimidate him, or the situations intimidate him, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he knew what his values were, and he knew what he believed in, and he just went and he did it. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Yeah, perfect sense. Tammy, Allie, and Kendall, Sprow, thanks for doing this with me. I know we had some fun doing it too because of good memories, and you like to hear stuff. I'm probably new stuff about Dad that you haven't heard too. But I'm sorry we had to do this under these circumstances, and I know it's tough, and I appreciate you guys all taking the time and Tammy agreeing to say yes to do this. I loved your husband. I can't say as much as you guys, but boy, I sure loved being around him and broadcasting games when he coached, and just talking with him before and after games and catching up. And I sure miss him too.
Yeah, we miss him every single day, but I welcome these opportunities to get to talk about him, and for the girls especially to get to hear who their dad was and what he was all about.
Best of luck, girls. Allie at UT, and Kendall, whatever you decide. You got a while yet to decide. You don't have to have anything figured out yet. But thanks for doing this. Appreciate the time. And that's going to do it for this segment of 15 Minutes with Andy. Be listening for our next podcast. And if you get that opportunity, be kind to someone today.